Lezyne have made a radar that works, so let's dig into the details about what's unique with this Radar Drive unit.
I trust that's a car. Yes, it is. It's two.
So a cycling radar is a small device that mounts to the rear of your bike and will detect approaching vehicles or cyclists. These use radio frequency technology to monitor movement and identify objects closing in at a higher speed than your own. That is, they rely on a speed differential between you and the approaching object. They'll send an alert to a bike computer, a mobile phone, or in the case of this Lezyne unit, optionally to a front-mounted headlight that has a little rear LED that will light up and beep when there's something approaching. And radars will typically change their flashing mode as well when an object is detected. Now, when I evaluate cycling radar devices, it's not just a case of mounting it to the bike, going for a ride and calling it a great alternative to the Garmin Varia if it detects a few cars. There's a lot more to it than that. Garmin set an incredibly high standard with cycling radars with the RTL515 released back in 2015. And that standard continues through to today with their 515, 715 and other models. In the last few years, we've seen a number of companies releasing radar products that do nothing other than lower that standard to the point where a lot of these newer radars just simply should not be on the market. Thankfully now there are companies releasing working alternatives to the Varia radar, but knowing which radar works well and which one doesn't, well, that can be a challenge. When it comes to testing and evaluating bike radars, my list here may look comprehensive, but simply reflects real-world usage out on the road. Starting off with checking for false positives and false negatives. False positives where a radar will report something's coming and you turn around and there's nothing there and it can't be explained. False negatives, probably the more evil of the two, where the unit reports there's nothing behind you, where in fact something is coming past you. Detection distances, these units typically detect vehicles coming in at 140 to 150 meters, some a little further, which then translates into how much time you have before the vehicle passes you. Threat clearance timing, and that is where you'll get the all clear on your head unit or alerting device that the vehicle has passed you. I've had one of these units, well, not particularly this one, I've had another unit alert that it's all clear when in fact the car was still 20 meters behind me. That is dangerous. I look at threat persistence for slow moving vehicles. Now with this technology, it needs a speed differential, but a lot of the time cars will move at the same speed as you for a set period of time. What I look at there is how soon does it drop off the threat? Deeper down the rabbit hole, and it's look into the radar beam detection width. Now what that means is how far to each side will this pick up on threats moving towards it. Too narrow and you won't get cars on winding roads, says me looking for the Trek car back. Bit of a problem with this unit. Too wide and, well, I really don't see much of a problem with it being too wide, but you never know. This is a 35-degree detection angle. The Varias are 40-degree detection angles, so these should be pretty close out on the road. Then it's looking at things like which alerts it can send. Can it send to a bike computer, to a mobile app, and to other? In this case, yes, it can send to other, their front headlight. It's then onto the mount type and the ease of use of mount type. Now there is no standard when it comes to bike radars, each radar company doing their own thing. I look at battery life, I look at charging, and then to light modes and visibility. Typically that's last on my list because lights are lights and AMP+ light connectivity is usually troublesome. Now what light mode to use is entirely up to you, where you ride and who you ride with. Now as such, my radar testing is heavily skewed towards the performance of the radar. If that doesn't perform very well, then there's absolutely no reason to consider it. Before getting out on the road, a quick overview of this system I have in front of me. It includes the Radar Drive rear light radar combo. It's up to 300 lumens with flash mode, up to 20 hours of usage depending on which mode you use. The REACT Drive front light, which has a rear LED and speaker or beeper for alerts, up to 1200 lumens and up to 70 hours of usage depending on the mode that you choose. USB-C for both of these. It has charge status lights on the power button to see how much charge you have left. You can also get those alerts via your head unit. And the front light supports USB-C fast charge. In addition to these comes the Radar Ally app, which is for configuration and mobile alerts from the radar. You can buy these individually or as the combo, which comes with both lights and obviously the app to download. Price-wise, the rear radar itself comes in at $180 US, front light alone comes in at $125 US, and the combo kit comes in at $280 US. Radar price comparisons of just the radar itself. The Wahoo radar coming in at $249 US, Trek car back and RTL515 coming in around $200 US at the moment. So the Lezyne radar comes in a little lower than the other radars on the market that are proven to work. Weight-wise, the Lezyne comes in at a little more than the others though. This tipping the scales at 102 grams, the Giant Recon 91 grams, Trekker radar coming in at 64 grams, Trek car back 87 grams, and the Varia RTL515 coming in at 71 grams. One thing Lezyne do really well is their product communication online. If you want to know absolutely everything about this radar light combo, they've got you covered with a 16-minute video with chapters to get to know this product. I love seeing this kind of content online. This allows me to focus more on what I'm interested in, that is the radar performance and the overall user experience. So let's get straight into that now. So the rear radar comes with 2 inserts and 2 rubber straps. It's not the worst mount that I've used for radars, but this is the only radar that I can recall where the strap mounts directly to the radar itself. There's no quarter turn mount. Not really a fan of this, but Lezyne tell me it's based on their popular strip drive line of lights, so there's consistency there if you're familiar with Lezyne lights. A few quick fire things to know about the pairing, usage and compatibility of these devices. The radar is AMP+ radar, obviously, and AMP+ light, so it can pair to any bike computer that supports those technologies. The radar will pair to the Radar Ally app on iOS and Android, and the radar will pair to the Lezyne headlight that supports it as well. Now the front light alerts will only work with the Lezyne radar, so you can't pair their front light to any other radar. These 2 devices are paired via the Ally app, and once done, you don't even need a bike computer or the Ally app in use. You can just put these on your bike, turn them on, and away you go. You get radar alerts via the little LED back here. It will also beep, and this will change flashing patterns too. Now I can see that being a very handy use case for people with cargo bikes, where having a radar would be useful, but you want to keep things simple without having a bike computer or even pulling out your mobile phone on the handlebars. Now, digging into the radar performance of this, and this is where I spend most of my time with these reviews, and that being out on the bike. First testing the radar by itself, and then side by side with a known good baseline, typically the Varia RTL515. My testing loop has a number of known trouble spots for radars, well, some radars. And in this testing, it's important to know the limitations of the technology used, so let's quickly cover those. Now these do require a line of sight, so they have to be correctly mounted. If they're mounted behind a rear tyre or facing to the side, you're going to get pretty poor results. These are not immune to radar reflections, and that can cause unexpected alerts. A good example of that is if you have your bike at a cafe, or maybe even you're riding past a particular fence on a particular angle and a car approaches in this direction, you will get an alert. It's a reflected alert. False positive, potato, 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 kind of working exactly as you'd expect with the technology used. So there is that as well, and something I consider when looking at false positives or false negatives. Also, as mentioned early on in the video, you do need a speed differential between these 2 devices for an alert to occur. Now, this is a limitation of the current technology used in all radars. If they alerted on things moving at the same speed or not moving at all, the alerts would be continuous. Maybe in 10 or 15 years, we have better technology beyond what's in these today. But when evaluating a radar, it's important to know these limitations to better understand what makes for a good or a bad radar. Okay, out on the road with the Lezyne for the solo test. Now, after a number of rides around my radar death loop or my radar test loop, I can confirm I've had 0 false positives on the 3 or 4 radar hotspots that really trip up poorly performing radar. So none of those with this radar on both my test loop and anywhere else where I've ridden this as well. All right, perfect conditions here for a detection at 146 meters as expected. Inbound at 53 kilometers an hour reported. That appears to be correct. It's a 60 kilometer an hour zone. And the all clear, which will happen in just a few seconds, takes place after the car has passed my front wheel. Now I have literally hundreds of those examples of perfect condition tests, and I can confirm it's working just fine in those conditions. Riding this section here with a parallel road past the Mars Bar factory, yes there is a Mars Bar factory in Ballarat, gives us an indication of the beam width. So that car over there on the right of the screen was detected and dropped off. Not a bad thing. That gives us an indication the beam width is wide enough to detect cars or threats that far out. Another one coming inbound here, which means on winding roads, this is going to give us some good detection and good time to know there's something coming up behind us. A little further down the road in traffic, where we are traffic, and there's a few little interesting scenarios that take place just here with this radar technology. Now, in situations like this, I wouldn't be relying on the radar. You'd be relying on your eyes, your ears, and your reaction times to make sure you're not planted across the bonnet of a car. Right, the reason why I'm picking this out is because as we approach the intersection here, I come to a halt. The car behind me slows right down, and it will drop off as a threat because there's no longer a speed differential. But when I take off again, you can see here I accelerate. The Volvo, I think it is behind me, slowly accelerates, but that speed differential only kicks in, well, it doesn't kick in. The car passes me without any detection. Now, here's what I'd consider a line ball. Should the radar have picked that up? Well, it depends. There really wasn't enough time when the speed was high enough for it to detect anything because by the time it would alert, it'd have to clear the alert. So that was a tricky one. A little further down the road, again, around Lake Wendouree, there's a lot of, well, there's road furniture here, roundabouts, parked cars, play equipment, etc. The Lezyne Radar does a really good job of detecting as soon as that car pokes its nose around the corner, it's detected that. It's also not lost on me, this is a 40km/h zone. And this car passes me at exactly 45 kilometres. Good job, Kia. Good job. Good job, radar too. That worked fine on the winding roads. Jumping into a speed run. Another correct detection on a winding road. And another one inbound. Not a straight line detection. It's a little bit off to the side. Picked it up just fine. And all clear. Good job. Onto the side-by-side testing on the same course. Using the Varia RTL515 to keep the Lezyne Radar in check. That detection there was almost, well, exactly the same. Speed-wise, all looking about the same as well. And clearance, yep, perfect. Both one and the same for that detection. Past the Mars bar factory again for the parallel road beam width test. The Varia picked that white car up a little sooner than the Lezyne. I don't have too much of an issue with that though, given they both did eventually pick it up. If the car had been coming a lot closer inbound, they both would have grabbed that. Car towing a caravan is approaching now. Let's see what happens here. Or Varia a little bit faster, but giving the recording and sampling rates of these, I'd call that line ball. That looks okay to me. Okay, having passed my trouble spots with flying colours, it's back into town. Clear line of sight here. The Garmin grabbing that one probably a second or so quicker. But where it really matters is they're both locking on, no false positives, and plenty of warning time for both. So at least 4 or 5, 6 seconds, if not more, as the vehicle passes, and they both give it all clear. All good. Alrighty, slow moving cars are always fun. Car turning out here. First detection is on the Varia. Just a little bit quicker. And the first to drop off as this car turns will be the Lezyne. Drops off a little bit quicker. Oh, that's so damn close though between the two. On the bike though, you really cannot notice those differences. It's only here as I'm looking back through the footage with those two recorded devices side by side that I can really tell what's going on there. Okay, next inbound detection. Let's just leave this run through. This should detect at about 140, 145 on that white car. If it's continuing to drive, 130 or so on both. Yep. And we'll leave this run inbound. No creative editing involved here. This is how things run through out in the road. Okay, through a roundabout here, I accelerate, the car typically slows down. Threat persistence remains, that's good. Car then accelerates. Still a threat. All right, good job. I'm happy with that. Next threat inbounds. Interesting, the Varia cleared that just quickly and then redetected. Like watching paint dry, isn't it? Bear with me. And all clear. We have a four-wheel drive doing a U-turn. Who's going to pick this one up first as it comes up to speed? Neither of them yet. Speed differential. Right. Garmin grabs that just a little bit quicker. Climbing the lane. Never trust the drivers around Ballarat. All right, so the threat persistence there, even though they're very, very slow moving, wasn't too bad at all. And they'll turn off, that'll clear, unless there's cars coming inbound. There we go, clear and redetect very quickly with that truck inbound. And clear on both, that's interesting, and redetect now, good, okay. Again, this is the technology, it's not perfect. There is limitations, but out in the road, that's fine. All good. Back in traffic again, and this is always the trouble spot for radars. But let's have a look how both of them operate here. So slow moving, same pace, same speed. Both are holding on to that threat, or the threat alert, or warnings. They should drop off just very shortly. Okay, Lezyne drops off first. Garmin holds on. Lezyne then picks it up again. So the Lezyne is just dropping off a little bit sooner. Still pick that car up going past, or the ute. And that one as well. It clears, and then it clears as well. So look, there are a number of scenarios. Look, every single passing situation is a climb here. Really? There is no climb here. Every single passing is different. Different shaped cars, different speeds, different positioning on the road. It's like a fingerprint. It is very, very unique for all passing. As I'm waffling on here, let's check this detection as the car accelerates towards me. Varia first, Lezyne second, and all clear. 48 Ks in a 40 zone. Good job. Geez, a few speedies around Ballarat today. And other cars approaching as well. All right, that's really about it. The conclusion is that no false positives whatsoever. I can rely on this radar. I'm as confident as the Varia. There is slight differences, but I'm sure if I ran two Garmins, there'll be differences as well. Actually, that reminds me, that's a test that I'm jotted down to do at some point. And yeah, the only real difference I can see though is Lezyne might drop that threat a little sooner and pick up cars just a little bit later when there is a speed differential. But climb complete. Good job, me. There was no elevation gain or loss there at all. Okay, again, well, I'm waffling. Slow-moving car going past. And all clear. But I guess, in short, given the radars I've suffered through lately, the Lezyne is doing really, really well. Some commentary on the front light, although this isn't the main focus of the review, that's more the radar itself, but this works as described by Lezyne. I'm really not a fan though of the flashing mode when vehicles are more than 50 meters away. I'd rather it always be solid when there's anything approaching. It was just way too easy for me to look down between flashes and note that there was nothing there when there actually was something approaching. Those flashes are a little bit too slow. I'd rather that be sped up or always solid when there's a threat approaching. Now the LED does switch to solid mode when the vehicle is 50 meters or closer, but I think there needs to be an update where that's just red all the time when there is an approaching vehicle. Onto the Radar Ally mobile app. It exists, which puts this radar ahead of others which do not have alerts via an app. I find companion apps extremely useful as they amplify the alerts. Some bike computers, including the newer Edge units, have a speaker and they produce a less piercing sound which can easily be missed in very windy conditions or when riding on very crunchy gravel. When it comes to the light brightness, I had an interesting discovery with this in the garage. Let's have a look at those results now. Capturing the real-world quality or brightness is always very difficult when using cameras with auto exposure and different quality lenses. However, the side-by-side was quite revealing. With the Varia 510, the Lezyne Radar, the Wahoo Tracker, and the Giant Recon here in the garage, it was really, really obvious the Lezyne Radar was different in quite a number of ways. The first obvious attribute is the brightness of the Lezyne unit. Nothing else came close to it. From the side here as well, you can see here the Lezyne is a lot brighter from this angle. The RTL510 not too bad from the side. And then flipping them over, facing them face down, ignoring the reflected light coming from the garage door, the light emitted from the Lezyne radar is still super bright and viewable from that angle. And even the view from the rear of the radar, hands down, this is the brightest and most visible radar that I've ever come across. Next up is a look at the beam focus and the brightness with a fixed exposure on my camera. Wahoo radar. Varia RTL510. Very focused beam on that one. These are set to maximum solid. Giant radar. Probably the second brightest one with a very focused circle in the middle there. Could potentially be annoying for drivers or other bike riders. And Lezyne radar. Blowing everything else out of the water without a focused beam though. So for overall brightness, this wins. It spreads a lot of light. Lezyne minimum solid. Even in low mode. You can see my hand lighting up there from the reflection as well. That is just... Anyhow, there it is. Proof that this thing is pretty bright. Battery life tests of the rear light here on the bench. Now, this is not a real world test as it's not out on the bike doing radar things, but my results were full solid. They had a claimed 4 hours of burn time. I got to 3 hours 16 before it switched to a lower powered mode, and a total burn time of 3 hours 41, 22 seconds before the light switched off. In medium solid, they have a claimed 9 hours of battery burn. I recorded 7 hours 32 minutes before it switched to a low mode automatically, with a total burn time of 8 hours 30, 29 seconds before it switched off. Now out on the bike I use low solid. They have a 16 hours claimed burn time with that. I don't have any data on that one other than I only saw the radar low warning on my head unit once after about 12 to 14 hours of time out on the bike. So in short, the battery life on the rear radar has been fine. Returning back to commentary on the radar module itself, how was it that Lezyne got this right using the same radar module by TerraSilic as a lot of other radars that are absolute garbage? Well, they're not just taking the data from the radar module and calling it done and trusting all the alerts and detections that it has. They've done a lot of work in the back end to make sure this works as best it can and only detects what it should be detecting. Now, the data we saw in my test, both solo and compared to the Varia, shows they've done a pretty good job with that, especially compared to some of the horror show radars I've purchased and reviewed this year already. So in summary, taking into account the limitations of radar technology, this is definitely one of the better radars that I've tested. It never threw up a false positive alert in any of the known radar trouble spots. Now yes, there was a few line ball calls with the slower moving vehicles at intersections, either coming in or out of the intersection where that speed of the vehicle changed. That's really the only thing I could spot with this unit, and that was really only evident when reviewing the footage here editing this video. Out on the road, I had no problems at all with it. When it comes to the app, I had no problems at all there. It works, it runs in the background, the alerts are very loud, maybe a little bit too loud. I'd also love a little more positive tone when it's all clear and I'm not going to be killed, but something they can add later on in software. The front light with this little LED on the back there and the speaker is a unique value add that nobody else is doing at the moment, and it does open this tech up for more riders, such as commuters, cargo bikes, even riders who are hearing impaired. Price-wise, the radar itself is quite reasonable. And yeah, there are much cheaper radars out there on the market, but their performance has proven to be absolute garbage. I guess the simplest way to put this in summary is similar to the Wahoo radar. The Lezyne radar is one I've been happy to put on the bike and use in place of the Varia when it comes to the radar performance. So alright, that's a wrap on this one. No affiliate links or anything on this one. If you're after one of these or the system, go support your local bike shop and see if they can get them in for you. And with that, thanks for watching.